The horse kicked up clouds of dust as it trudged into the sleepy, sunburnt town of Rusted Creek. Heat rippled off the dirt roads and the wooden planks of porches creaked as a few old-timers lifted their heads to squint at the approaching figure. She was draped in black, face half covered with a weather-worn scarf, hat pulled low. Her back was impossibly straight for a woman who had ridden what must have been days. In her arms, wrapped tightly in a patchwork quilt, was a boy. Motionless. Pale. Dead. At first, they snickered. Some chuckled in disbelief, thinking it some madwoman with a sack of flour or a sleeping child. A drunken man leaned against the saloon door and muttered, "That's some kind of theater show." Another laughed, "Bet she lost her mind out in the heat." But then she spoke. Her voice sliced through the dry air like a whip. "Where's my son's killer?" Silence fell like a dropped hammer. The breeze itself seemed to pause. She dismounted, not stumbling, not hesitating. Her boots hit the ground with the weight of a mother carrying not just a body, but a storm. Her name was Clara Dawson. No one had seen her in 5 years. She and her son, Eli, had vanished after her husband was murdered near the red dust mines. People said she lost her mind, moved into the mountains, became one with the wilderness. But now she was back, and she carried a lifeless child in her arms and fire in her eyes. Sheriff Walt Greeley stepped forward, his hand on his holster. "Clara, what in God's name? Don't you dare pretend you don't know, Walt," she barked. "You knew they were hunting boys like mine. You knew and did nothing." Murmurs spread through the crowd. A few folks dropped their heads. Some looked away. Others, the younger ones, looked confused. Clara laid her son's body on the dusty table outside the general store. She unwrapped the quilt just enough for them to see. Bruises. Rope burns. A bullet hole in his chest. His eyes, though closed, looked like they still held pain and trust. This town protected the men who did this. And I want justice. She looked like a mother carved from stone, but her lips trembled as she placed a kiss on Eli's cold forehead. He was all I had left. Sheriff Walt swallowed hard. The weight of history rested heavy on his shoulders. He looked at the boy and then at Clara, eyes rimmed with red. "He came here." She nodded. 2 days ago. Said he wanted to find work, help me build the cabin before winter. He was just 14. A soft gasp spread through the crowd. He never made it home. I tracked his blood. I found him dumped like trash by Miller's Gorge. But he left a trail. He wrote names. She pulled a paper from her coat. Blood smeared. Shaky handwriting. 3 names. One of them made the crowd visibly tense. "Luke Parsons," someone whispered. Luke was the son of a wealthy cattle rancher. Just 20. Rode hard, drank harder. Had a reputation for cruelty he wore like a badge. Clara's eyes locked on Luke, who stood at the edge of the crowd, trying to slink away. "You run, and you'll wish the bullet took you clean." He froze. "You watched them beat him," she said, stepping forward. "And you laughed. Then you picked up the gun." "I didn't mean to," he cried. "It was just supposed to scare him. He was just a nobody." That word hung in the air. Nobody. Clara's hands balled into fists, but her voice softened. "He was my boy. He sang to me every morning while I made tea. He carved me a wooden bird on my birthday. He was scared of thunder and always held my hand when it rained. He was everything." A hush fell. The weight of her grief was more than they could bear. Even the wind refused to blow. An elderly woman, Mrs. Calloway, stepped from the crowd, tears falling freely. She placed a hand on Clara's shoulder. "He used to bring me flowers from the river trail. Said every old lady deserved to feel seen." One by one, townsfolk stepped forward. Stories. Memories. Regret. Then came Reverend Amos, a stooped man with a weathered Bible and cloudy eyes. Eli once stayed behind after service. Said he didn't know much about God, but he believed in kindness. Said if God was like his mama, he'd be all right. Clara took a breath. Stepped back. Looked at the sheriff. I don't want revenge. I want something more difficult. I want truth. And I want change. She picked up her son again and walked to the chapel, the only place untouched by the rot of the town. That night, Rusted Creek didn't sleep. It grieved. Quiet conversations broke out. Mothers held their sons closer. Old men who once laughed over whiskey felt their hearts hollow out. And Sheriff Walt knocked on doors, one by one. A candlelight vigil flickered outside the chapel. People wept openly, not just for Eli, but for who they had become. A town that forgot to protect its children. A town that laughed when they should have listened. In the quiet, Luke's mother came to Clara's cabin with shaking hands and a plate of warm bread. I failed you. I failed them both. Clara accepted the bread but said nothing. The next morning, Clara stood in front of a full chapel. Her son's body rested before the altar. But this time, the town was with her. Luke Parsons stood with his hands bound, tears streaming. He didn't ask for mercy. He asked to speak. I killed your boy because I thought he didn't matter. I thought being born with nothing meant you were nothing. I was wrong. I see him in my dreams now. Not the pain. His eyes. He forgave me before I even pulled the trigger. He smiled. And I broke. Clara didn't cry. She nodded. Then you make it right. Not with jail time. With a life spent serving those like him. You clean graves. You fix homes. You work in that orphanage until your back breaks. And so, Rusted Creek began to change. Because of a mother who rode into town carrying her child, asking not for vengeance, but for a future. Clara stayed one more week. She cleaned her son's grave herself, planting wildflowers all around it. People came to help, but she insisted on finishing the cross with her own hands. Before she left, she gave a simple speech. He forgave you. So I will too. But forgiveness doesn't erase guilt. It only gives you a chance to become something better. Don't waste it. She rode out the same way she came in, alone, but no longer ignored. Years later, children played in a park named after Eli Dawson. And on a quiet bench, a graying man sat, telling them the story of a brave boy, and the mother who wouldn't let the world forget him. And when they asked why he told it every day, the man would smile through tears and say, because once, I was lost. And a boy who forgave me gave me a reason to live. And in the mountains, Clara sat in her cabin, worn hands holding a small wooden bird. A tear slipped down her cheek. Her son may be gone, but his light still lived. Through every child that was fed. Every orphan who found a home. Every stranger shown kindness. Eli had died, but he had not vanished. He had become the soul of a town reborn.